There we go. Um, hello everybody. Welcome to this Christian CND webinar. This is the first webinar that I have run, so I'm very excited about that. So if you don't know me, my name is Liddy. I'm outreach manager here at Christian CND, and a big part of my job is going into churches, but also like schools, universities, chaplaincies, to talk about the work that we do. And so I feel like I've learned a lot in that about how you communicate about disarmament and how you kind of share that message. So I thought this would be an interesting topic for the webinar. Um, so uh, Obviously, like for starting off, like why talk about it? Because I think for some people, activism and campaigning, I'm assuming I'm preaching to the converted here, but I think for some people, activism is a lot more like a kind of side thing that they do, and then church is a separate thing, and the two aren't really linked at all. But obviously, like we're all here because we're driven by our faith, to be people of peace, to engage with the world as well as with our church. If you talk about nuclear disarmament in your church, that's a chance to kind of respond corporately, rather than just kind of on an individual level. There's also just so many ways to take part in disarmament discussions, and it means that everyone can take part in that if you're talking about that in a kind of group setting within your church. I think people often see nuclear disarmament as very political. Um, People are quite happy to like pray for peace in the church or pray for refugees. But as soon as it's something like nuclear weapons, there's always a bit of a like, well, not always, but there can be a bit of a, oh, that's a bit too far. So I think it can also help to, yeah, make it a bit more accessible for people if it's somebody that they know talking about it. And it also, helps us play our part in building the kingdom of God, starting these discussions, and talking about making the world a more peaceful place. So I've kind of tried to break it down into if I was thinking in my local church, I wanted to get nuclear disarmament on the agenda, how I would do that. And so I've tried to like make a little guide, make some little suggestions, ideas about how to go about bringing it up. So the first thing that I've got is finding the right opportunity. I think there's so much goes on in our churches, and there's often lots of different settings. Like my church has like small groups. We've got like an eco group. We have, the main church service. We might have like an evening service one day. So there's just so many opportunities to pray about it, to witness against nuclear disarmament. And I think it's important to like find the right fit of what to do. So I think the first thing that I would do if I wanted to get my church in on this is to just chat to the church leaders, say that it's something that I really care about and that I think the church should be doing something about. And they'll probably have a better idea of what is going on within the whole church, and where stuff will fit in better. And kind of, what would be the most appropriate context for that as well. And then secondly, fit in with existing structures. I think this is what I always try and do in my job, is that I don't want people to put on a special event. I mean, I would love it if they put on a special event for Christian CND, but actually meeting people where they're at is really important. So if there is already a group that's going on where people are discussing kind of issues of justice, going to that, or going to somebody's kind of regular service and preaching or leading prayers, fitting in with that means that you're automatically going to get the people who come to that to listen to what you've got to say about disarmament. Um, that being said, running a specific event is absolutely a really great way to do this, particularly if there's a specific occasion, like Hiroshima Day or Nagasaki Day, Disarmament Week, Peace Sunday, even Remembrance. There's a lot of opportunities to kind of tie it in with a date that's going on, and making sure that people are aware of that kind of in the wider setting outside of the church. And when it's a specific event like that, you can also advertise it more widely. So that could also be like a missional opportunity if people are coming in from the local community to engage with that. So when you're preparing to speak, so you've got your date in place when you're going to talk about disarmament. I think it is also important to be prepared, and yeah, to have some idea of what you're going to do. So knowing your audience is a big one. And if you're a church member, you're talking in your own church, you probably know the conversation, you've probably congregation, and you've probably got good relationships with people. Um, I think opinions on nuclear weapons can be very split, even within people who are very similar theologically. Um, so I think that makes it really important to center your own relationships with people in the discussions. So, for example, if there is someone in your congregation who is like a Navy veteran and you want to talk about nuclear weapons, going in with the armed forces are overfunded level probably isn't the right approach to take with that person. And so I think, yeah, just going into this thinking about like who am I talking to, what do they care about, and being really open and honest with each other is really important. Um, Second thing is do your research. Like there's such a wealth of information that can help you speak on this issue. There's like facts, statistics, historical sources. There's a lot of stuff that you can use to kind of enrich that discussion. Christian CND has some resources about this as well. So yeah, making sure that you've kind of got the resources behind your belt is a really good idea as well. And thirdly, anticipating the tricky questions beforehand. So sometimes you can just be asked a question that completely floors you. So I think having a kind of answer in your back pocket, but then equally balancing that with not just like shouting everyone down that asks you a question or that disagrees with you, but actually trying to like meet them where they're at, and yeah, really kind of sitting in that uncertainty with them is really important. So I think also understanding the message, because like I said, nuclear weapons can be seen as very, very political in a church. I don't see where they should be, but I think that often like is a barrier to a lot of people to talking about them. So I think ultimately making it a Christian issue, and coming at it from that point of view is the best way to talk about it. So the main reason that a lot of Christians are against nuclear weapons, and again, I'm probably preaching to the converted here, is because we believe nuclear weapons violate the teaching of Jesus. Um, so you know using Bible quotes and using that kind of your own personal testimony in there is really important. I think also I put hope over fear as point two. Nuclear weapons can just be a really, really grim subject. And it can be really easy to feel scared or helpless when you're kind of faced with that reality. Um, but we have a hope in Jesus. We believe that he faced evil and won. We believe that he is working all things for our good. And being able to retain this sense of hope is so essential when you're talking about something like nuclear weapons. And so I think ultimately trying to have that hope when you are talking about it can bring that hope to other people as well. And thirdly, drawing on church teachings. So almost every church denomination in the UK has spoken out about nuclear weapons in some way. The people in the pews might disagree with that. But I think if you're supported by your denomination in your convictions on this, that can help you to convince others of it. So we have a church's guide where it says kind of what each denomination says about them, but I think pretty much every major denomination in the UK has some kind of anti-nuclear weapons policy. Um, so practical tips, things that I find really help when people are kind of, yeah, not really kind of seeing your point of view, um, getting personal. I find people really kind of respond well to it. If you have like a personal story about nuclear weapons, that might be something like a big moment where God has spoken to you. I know that Martin Tiller, one of our co-chairs, he has a really kind of powerful testimony about how he got involved in nuclear disarmament. But I think even like people that you've met or events that you've been to, everybody's got a personal connection with this issue, no matter how deep it is. So I think sharing that connection will then help people in turn connect with you. And then the issue with disarmament, and it kind of makes it feel more human. I think humans at heart are storytellers, and the Bible is full of stories for that reason. So I think that can be a really helpful way. Bringing in other people to stuff you're doing, it's not always a practical thing to do. But there might be local activists in your area or even nuclear survivors. I met a second generation nuclear test survivor in the pub a few weeks ago, which was wild. But I think having other people involved in the stuff that you're doing, even if it's, another activist, another volunteer, even just someone who agrees with you, can really help kind of spread that load of sharing. Um, and also putting it in writing. I think I've obviously talked a lot about speaking today because that's my job. But actually speaking isn't everybody's thing. So could you write something about nuclear disarmament in your church's newsletter if you've got one? Maybe your church has a website or a blog. So that kind of thing enables you to share your thoughts, but it means you don't have to public speak. And that also means that it could reach people outside of your congregation as well. Um, I've called this rooting yourself, and now I'm looking at it, that feels like it's not a great title. But actually making sure that everything that you're doing is underpinned by that kind of spiritual side of things. Um, and that means that what you're doing is ultimately led by the peace of God. So firstly is praying. It's such a powerful way to help the cause. We're obviously going to pray later tonight at the end of this webinar. Um, but praying before you speak, like leading some prayers during your talk, and then encouraging people to keep praying for peace, is just such a powerful way to help, yeah, to help the cause. Christian CND produces a monthly prayer diary. We also do prayers like this, so well done everybody for coming. Um, Using liturgy and worship as part of your workshop as well. I think it doesn't, if you're talking about nuclear weapons, it doesn't always have to be really like informative and practical, but actually using that kind of more spiritual side, like liturgy, worship materials, means that everything's really grounded. So yeah, we have a lot of worship resources at Christian CND. We have prayers, liturgy, we even have our own hymn. I think if you can use that in your local church, that's a huge thing to do as well. And finally, like making a commitment. I think there's so often that I go to a church or a university group or a school or something like that. And I think, is this a one-time thing? Like, am I going to lead this session and then I'll leave and they'll just forget about it? And the thing that I find really, I guess, like rewarding and really satisfying is when somebody comes back to me and says, "Oh, because we heard what you said about this session, we as a church are going to mark Hiroshima Day this year, or we're going to move our church's money out of our like kind of bank account into an ethical one." So actually making a commitment so that it isn't a one-time thing. So challenge your church to make peace part of the culture. So are you praying for peace regularly in your services? Are you using teaching, songs, liturgy around peace kind of regularly? Um, are your church policies, like the kind of the divestment thing, are they in line with a kind of peaceful idea of what it is to be somebody who's pursuing peace? I think that's a really good thing to do as well. And then also engaging the church community, like I said, it doesn't need to be a one-time thing. And there's a lot of things that individuals can do to make a difference in this. So organizing follow-up actions, whether that's kind of publicizing local events or protests that you can get people to go to, share petitions with the community, or trying to engage with your local political representatives. That can all help to keep nuclear disarmament kind of in the congregation's minds. I think also a visual reminder can be really helpful sometimes because I'm very like out of sight, out of mind. So whether you could make a full-blown display that I know some people have done in their churches, if you could just put some leaflets out, if you've got a leaflet table, I know my church has a leaflet table, some leaflets about Christian CND, or even leave something in the church as a reminder for people to pray for peace. My church did an activity ages ago where we made little pipe cleaner people, and one girl stuck hers on the like door frame of the kitchen, and that was a reminder to pray for the church family. But then every time I walked past the door, I was like, "Oh, I need to pray for the church family." So if you could put out like a peace crane or maybe a little dove or something like that, just so that when people see it, they're reminded to pray for peace. And then signpost people to wider things as well. So, you can tell people about the work that Christian CND do, for example. But you can also link people up with your denominational peace organization if you have one, and other kind of, I guess, secular organizations as well. And then if you need more advice, Christian CND has a lot of resources. You can always ask people for help if you need it. And the whole team at Christian CND would be delighted to have someone ask about that. Also, let Christian CND know if your local church does decide to do anything. That'd be great. And stay in touch. Like, look at our website and social media. Just be aware of events that are going on so that you can tell people in your church about that. So I'm aware that I have talked a lot and also I talk very fast. Apologies for that. But I have some discussion questions. I was going to put people into breakout rooms, but I think we can probably discuss as a whole group. So I will stop the share and I will also stop the recording.